Most women never realize they are not falling in love with a man, they are falling in love with an old wound, and that wound has been choosing their partners for them their entire lives, and the most devastating part is that they do not even know it is happening because the wound does not look like a wound, it looks like chemistry, it looks like attraction, it looks like fate, and Carl Jung believed that until this hidden pattern is brought into consciousness, it will direct your life and you will call it fate, and that is exactly what happens to so many women who find themselves repeating the same painful relationship patterns over and over again. They meet someone new, and for a while everything feels different. They think this time is different. They think they finally found someone who will love them the way they deserve, and then slowly the familiar cracks appear, the same distance, the same unavailability, the same emotional coldness, and they are left wondering why they keep choosing the same man in a different body, and the answer is not what they expect. Jung wrote that the unconscious mind is drawn to what is familiar, even when what is familiar is destructive, and this is why you are not choosing your partners consciously, you are choosing them unconsciously, because your nervous system has been conditioned to recognize certain emotional patterns as familiar, and familiar feels like love even when it is not, and this is why the father wound is one of the most powerful and destructive forces in a woman's romantic life, because the father is the first man a woman ever loves, and the way he loves her shapes her understanding of love for the rest of her life. And if he was emotionally unavailable, she will be drawn to emotionally unavailable men. And if he was cold, she will chase warmth from men who cannot give it. And if he was critical, she will seek approval from men who will never approve of her, and if he was absent, she will fall for men who are never fully present, and this is not a choice, it is a survival mechanism that developed in childhood to protect her from the pain of an inconsistent or absent father, but it is a mechanism that has outlived its usefulness, and it is now keeping her trapped in cycles of broken love. And this is what Carl Jung would recognize as the father wound, and modern attachment psychology supports something surprisingly similar, because research shows that the attachment style we develop with our primary caregiver shapes the way we attach to romantic partners in adulthood, and if we grew up with an avoidant or anxious attachment pattern, we will unconsciously recreate that pattern in our relationships, because the brain does not know the difference between familiar and healthy, it only knows what it recognizes, and what it recognizes it seeks, and this is why you keep choosing the same man in different bodies, and this is why you keep hoping they will change, and this is why you keep giving chances to people who do not deserve them, because you are not trying to fix them, you are trying to fix your father, and the truth is you cannot fix someone who is not there, and the sooner you understand that, the sooner you can begin to heal, and the sooner you can break free from this pattern. But before we get to the healing, we need to understand how this wound shows up in your relationships, because it does not always look the way you expect it to, and the first way it shows up is in the men you choose, and the reason you keep choosing emotionally unavailable men is not because you are unlucky, it is because that is what love felt like when you were young, and your nervous system has been conditioned to expect that pattern, and it will keep seeking it out until you bring it into conscious awareness, and that is what we are going to do in this video. We are going to bring this hidden pattern into the light so you can see it for what it is, and finally break free from it. And Jung believed that the child's first experience of love shapes their entire relationship template for life, and if that love was conditional, inconsistent, or absent, the child internalizes a belief that love must be earned, that love is unpredictable, that love requires sacrifice, and when they grow up they will unconsciously seek out relationships that mirror that early experience, and this is why you do not fall for the kind, consistent man who shows up and loves You without conditions, you fall for the man who keeps you guessing, the man who withholds affection, the man who makes you work for every crumb of attention, because that feels like love to the wounded part of your psyche, because that is what love looked like when you were young, and the unconscious mind does not know the difference between love and familiar pain. It only knows what it recognizes, and what it recognizes it seeks, and this is the trap that keeps you stuck in cycles of toxic love for years, sometimes decades, always hoping that this time will be different, always believing that if you just give enough love, enough patience, enough forgiveness, he will finally see you, finally value you, finally become the person he was always meant to be, but he never becomes that person because that person never existed and you are chasing a ghost, and this is the father wound at work, and this brings us to the second way the father wound shows up in your relationships. You try to earn love by being perfect because you learned that love was conditional, and you learned that you had to earn it. You learned that if you were good enough, smart enough, pretty enough, helpful enough, he would finally see you, he would finally choose you, he would finally love you the way you always wanted, and you carried this belief into every relationship. You overgave, you overfunctioned, you overextended yourself trying to prove that you were worthy of love, and the men you chose took advantage of it because they could feel your desperation, they could sense your need for approval, and they used it against you, not because they were evil, but because they were broken too, and broken people attract broken people. And this is the painful truth that most women never realize: the love you are trying to earn was never available to begin with, and no amount of perfection will make someone love you who is incapable of love. And this is where the father wound becomes so destructive, because it convinces you that you are the problem, that if you could just be better, he would finally love you, but you were never the problem. You were just trying to get love from someone who could not give it. And this is the third way the father wound shows up in your relationships. You confuse intensity with intimacy because your father was unpredictable, and you learn to associate chaos with love. You learn that love feels like walking on eggshells. Love feels like anxiety. Love feels like waiting for the other shoe to drop. And when you meet a man who is calm and consistent and safe, he feels boring, he feels wrong. He feels like something is missing because your nervous system has been conditioned to expect chaos, and peace feels foreign to you. And this is why you keep going back to the men who hurt you, because they feel familiar, and familiar feels like home, even when home was a place where you never felt safe. And let me tell you a story about Sarah, who met 3 different men in 10 years, and all 3 of them were different in every way except one. They all made her feel the same way: invisible, unseen, unimportant. And Sarah could not understand why she kept attracting the same type of man, until she realized that her father had made her feel invisible too, and she had been looking for his approval in every man she met. And this is the heartbreaking truth about the father wound: you are not choosing bad men because you are unlucky. You are choosing them because they feel like home, and home was never safe. But this is not where the story ends, because the father wound is not your destiny. It is a wound, and wounds can heal. And when you heal this wound, everything changes. And this is where Carl Jung's concept of the shadow becomes essential, because Jung believed that the shadow contains everything we have rejected about ourselves. And when we reject the part of us that longs for our father's approval, we are rejecting a part of ourselves, and that part will control us until we bring it into the light. And this is what healing the father wound really means. It means bringing the shadow into consciousness. It means acknowledging that you have been looking for your father in every man you meet, and it means understanding that your father did not give you what you needed because he did not have it to give, and this is not an excuse for his behavior. It is an explanation, and understanding the explanation frees you from the cycle, because you can stop trying to fix him and start trying to heal yourself. And when you do that, you become finally unavailable to broken love, because you stop looking for your father in every man you meet. You stop chasing unavailable men. You stop trying to earn love. You stop confusing chaos with chemistry. And you start choosing men who are capable of love, men who are present, men who are consistent, men who are safe, and this is not about settling, it is about finally knowing what love is supposed to feel like and refusing to accept anything less. And Jung would recognize this as the process of individuation, becoming whole by integrating all parts of yourself, including the wounded parts, including the parts that still long for your father's approval. And when you integrate those parts, you stop giving them away to men who do not deserve them, and you start keeping them for yourself. And this is the real victory of healing the father wound, not finding a better man, but becoming a woman who no longer needs to be saved by a man because she has already saved herself. And this is what makes you finally unavailable to broken love, because broken love recognizes you as a target. And when you are whole, broken love cannot find you, and the narcissists leave, the emotionally unavailable men leave, and the toxic patterns break because you are no longer sending out the signal that says, I am wounded, I am desperate, I am willing to settle for less. And the men who used to find you can no longer see you because you are not the same person you used to be. You have healed, and healing makes you invisible to people who are looking for someone to exploit, but it makes you visible to people who are looking for someone who is whole. And this is not about blaming your father, it is about understanding him. It is about recognizing that he was also wounded, that he was also broken, that he was also trying to heal his own wounds. And he did not have the tools to be the father you needed. And forgiveness is not about excusing his behavior, it is about freeing yourself from the burden of carrying his wounds into every relationship you have. And when you forgive him, you are not doing it for him, you are doing it for yourself, because holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, and the person who suffers most from your unforgiveness is you. And this is why healing the father wound is the most important work you will ever do, because it is not just about your relationship with your father, it is about every relationship you will ever have. And until you heal this wound, you will keep choosing the same man in different bodies, and you will keep wondering why it hurts so much. And the truth is, it does not have to be this way. You can break the cycle, you can heal the wound, you can become whole, and you can finally receive the love you have always deserved. So what does healing the father wound actually look like in practice? The first step is to recognize that the wound exists, and this is the hardest step because it requires you to look at your patterns and admit that you have been choosing men who cannot love you, and that is painful, but it is also liberating, because once you see the pattern, you can begin to break it. The second step is to stop looking for your father in every man you meet, and this is not as simple as it sounds, because you have been doing it unconsciously your entire life, and it will take time to retrain your brain, but you can do it by becoming aware of the pattern. Every time you feel drawn to an emotionally unavailable man, you can ask yourself, is this love or is this familiar? And if it is familiar, you can choose to walk away even if it feels wrong, because walking away from familiar pain is the first step toward genuine love. The third step is to cultivate a relationship with yourself, and this means learning to give yourself the love you have been seeking from others. It means learning to validate yourself instead of seeking validation from men. It means learning to soothe yourself instead of relying on a partner to soothe you. And this is not selfish, it is essential, because you cannot receive love from someone else if you do not know how to give it to yourself. And Jung believed that the goal of life is individuation, becoming whole by integrating all parts of yourself. And when you become whole, you stop needing someone else to complete you. And this is the most attractive quality a person can have, because a whole person attracts another whole person, and two whole people can create a relationship that is not based on need but on choice. And that is the kind of relationship that heals, the kind of relationship that transforms, the kind of relationship that sets you free, while also recognizing that ultimate guidance and strength come from God, because every heart, every connection, and every moment of our lives exists within His knowledge and wisdom. And the father wound is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to heal. And when you heal it, everything changes. The men you attract, the relationships you choose, the love you receive, all of it changes because you finally understand that you were never broken. You were just wounded, and wounds can heal, and patterns can break, and cycles can end, and you can finally allow yourself to receive the love you have always deserved, not from someone who reminds you of your father, but from someone who loves you the way a partner should love you. And that is the beginning of a new story, one where you are not a victim of your past, but the author of your future. And the day you stop searching for your father in strangers is the day your future finally begins, and you can finally become the woman you were always meant to be, and you can finally receive the love you have always deserved. And that is the most powerful thing a human being can become. So if this message made you uncomfortable, that is usually where healing begins. And if you are ready to continue this journey of self-discovery, subscribe to Winds of Thought, because every week we uncover another hidden truth that Carl Jung believed most people never discover, and the truth is not always comfortable, but it is always liberating. And the truth is that you are not broken, you are just wounded, and wounds can heal. And healing is not a destination, it is a journey, and that journey starts today.